Hi everyone, we're going to start our next system here, the digestive system. This is going to be the last one we are talking about today. So let's dive right in. So the first part is functions. So there are two main functions of our digestive system, and that's going to be digestion, which is the mechanical and chemical breakdown of our foods. So what that means, mechanical, that's the physical breaking down, ripping apart of our food. And then chemical is going to be a bunch of different enzymes that come together to help break down that food into its smallest pieces. So really mechanical focuses on breaking down the large portions of our food, where chemical breaks it down into the smallest forms. And then we have absorption, which is absorbing the nutrients necessary for the body. So again, we're getting all of the nutrients we need from our food. So absorption is a really important process because it's actually taking everything that we need for the body at that time and bringing it back in so we can use it. So there are a bunch of different organs involved here. So the first set is called the alimentary canal or the GI tract, and this is going to include the mouth, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, rectum, and anus. And then we have these extra accessory organs, which include our salivary glands, liver, gallbladder, and pancreas. And these are really going to aid in mostly the chemical breakdown of our food when it adds in some different types of enzymes and different acids here. So again, we're going to go through each one of these different phases here in the alimentary canal, and also how these accessory organs contribute to the digestion of our food. So of course, where we're going to start is where we get the food initially, which is in our mouth or our oral cavity. So mouth, really main portion of this is going to be that mechanical breakdown of food, the actual chewing process, which is going to start to break down that food into smaller pieces. And then we're also going to see the contribution of our salivary gland. So there are two types of secreting cells here, which is going to be the serous cells and the mucus cells. So this is our salivary glands here are going to contribute chemically, where our teeth and tongue are going to contribute mechanically. So the serous cells are going to produce and give off this enzyme called amylase. So amylase is going to convert starch into glucose, and that's going to really help with the breakdown of our carbohydrates. So that's what's going to be really important here, is this amylase. And then our mucus cells here are going to secrete a thick fluid called mucus, and that's going to help bind those particles together and lubricate them during swallowing. So again, contributing here, our teeth is going to be a really big portion for mechanical breakdown, and then our salivary glands are going to contribute here as well, with this amylase to break down carbohydrates and mucus to kind of bring those together so we're able to swallow those materials. So let's take a look. So we know that our tongue is also going to contribute by rolling all of that chewed and broken down material into a bolus so it can be swallowed. And then our teeth have a really big effect as well in that mechanical breakdown. So our incisors are going to be used for cutting, our cuspids are used for tearing, and our precuspids and molars are going to be used for grinding. So again, our teeth and our tongue are a really big contribution in mechanical breakdown, where those salivary glands secreting both amylase and mucus are going to be used mostly for our chemical breakdown in our mouth here. So once we move from our mouth, we're going to move down our GI tract to our pharynx. So our pharynx connects the nasal and oral cavities with the larynx and the esophagus. So there are three parts of our pharynx that we're going to talk about. Our nasopharynx, which is the passageway for air during breathing. So this is mostly going to be used in our respiratory system, but we do have some comparisons here with our pharynx. Our oropharynx, which is the passageway for food moving down from the oral cavity. So again, heavily used in digestion here. And then our last one is going to be our laryngopharynx, which is the passageway to the esophagus. So let's take a look at these different ones. So again, our nasal cavity here is mostly used for respiratory, but we do have our nasopharynx here, which is that back of that throat. Then we have our oryngopharynx, which again is going to be heavily used in digestion here, bringing that food from the oral cavity. And then finally, we're going to see our laryngopharynx, which is going to bring our food the rest of the way down into the esophagus. Something I do want you to notice here is that the esophagus and the trachea, from talking about the respiratory system, air and food have very similar passageways in our body. So what we need to talk about next is how swallowing is different from breathing. So let's take a look at that. So our swallowing mechanism here. There's a flap-like structure attached to the larynx, and this is going to be called our epiglottis. So our epiglottis is a really, really important structure in our throat and in our mouth, which is going to close off the top of the larynx, so food is less likely to enter the trachea. So if we go back and take a look at this image here, we can see this right here is our epiglottis. So this is going to have the food move down, and when that epiglottis is closed, it's going to go straight into the esophagus. But when we are breathing, we're taking in air either from our nose or from our mouth, our epiglottis is going to be open, and it's going to allow that air to move into our larynx, into our trachea, to our lungs here. So again, really, really important structure here is our epiglottis. So our swallowing reflex is going to momentarily inhibit our breathing, but that is okay because we don't, unlike our heart beating, breathing is kind of more of a passive idea. So we can hold our breath when we're underwater. So we technically are holding our breath as we are swallowing our food, because that epiglottis again is going to cover up that larynx and that trachea, so food does not fall into there. That's also a reason if you accidentally breathe while you're drinking water, you might actually open that epiglottis and allow that water to move down into your lungs, which is why you tend to cough a lot. If you choke on water or something like that. It's just the process of that water or that food going into your lungs rather than into your esophagus. Again, really important structure here, our epiglottis. So if you have any questions on any of the things that we just went over, we talked about our oral cavity and how we are swallowing with our pharynx, please let me know.